50-50 of people, when they hear know you're enough, they think no, you are enough. And that is definitely part of it. But I'm also talking about know you're enough, meaning Y-O-U-R, your sufficiency. And so this notion of more versus enough. Do you know, like, and so you're being a possessive adjective, if you will. And this relates to our, the trouble that we have with always going for more, but not knowing that we are enough, but also that my enough, and that is, what do I need to live a fulfilling life? And that's, I do not need, my enough is less than many people's more, if that makes sense. So there's a kind of wordplay going on here. And this is also a fun moment to pause, because you said, well, how do you get started? And the way that the book has been written, actually, not only can you read one chapter at a time, but each chapter has a series of exercises and call out boxes and questions that are designed to do just this, and to sort of get you initially, because where all of this starts is with an initial reflection of like, what is what I call your flux baseline? Like, what does your relationship to change and these superpowers look like today? And a lot of people have never really given a thought to their enough. What is enough? What would be enough for you to feel like you could flourish? Most people just say, I just need more. I just need more. They've never defined an enough. They always need more. And as a result, they're never going to find more. And one of the ways I like to put this is, when you come at life with a more mindset, it is very, very hard to find enough. But when you come at life with an enough mindset, you almost immediately see not only more, you just see abundance everywhere you look. So, the first step I often ask people is like, have you thought about enough? Have you ever come up with like, what is in your enough? And for many people, it's because you can think about this as enough. Well, how many cars do I have? How many bedrooms in my house? How many friends? How many trips do I take this year? I mean, you can measure it in these different ways too. But then there's also, am I living a life of enough dignity? Am I living a life of enough meaning? Am I living a life of enough love, right? I mean, it gets really interesting really fast, and there's no right or wrong answer. My enough is going to look different than your enough, and your enough's going to look different than your husband's enough, perhaps, or whatever. And that's great. That's how it's supposed to be. But we want to start that conversation, because enough, if you look at the etymology of it, it ultimately goes back to sufficiency. How much, so the Greek word, ancient Greek word would focus on how much can one person carry. However much you could carry was your enough. And what's interesting there, it's a very human-centric component. You're focused on an individual or a household, and anything more than enough was seen as greed. Anything more than enough was seen as unsustainable. Now, that feels really foreign today in terms of the kinds of conversations that I typically am in or experience. But what I like to point out, because I'm trying to bring all of this back to a world in flux, and all of this back to how do you respond when change hits? What gets really interesting is a lifestyle of more over time can be quite expensive, quite cumbersome, and it actually ties a lot of people down. And when change hits, it becomes a lot harder to deal with a more lifestyle, a more mindset, than it does when you've just got enough. Enough is really nimble. It's really easy to pivot. It's really easy to sort of repurpose and take that enough and take it somewhere else. And, I've had to talk a lot about this over the last year. I'm not saying that we should all have a little bit more in our savings account, for sure. When change hits, that's really helpful. But what I'm talking about is a long-term, sustainable lifestyle. When you come from it from a point of enough, you're able to actually do and see and be much more resilient than when you're constantly going after ever more.